Hey guys, this is Zed from Mission Impossible, and with me I have Wyatt, and welcome to RetroGrade, where we rank Atari 2600 games. Today we have ZiMag, Avalon, Hill, and Wizard. So
ZiMag or Vidco.
Yeah,
maybe?
there was some other...
Which may be related.
May be related.
That's the wildest thing in one of the game descriptions.
Yes,
just
may be related.
These companies may be related. Yep. They release the same games. I think they are.
The jury is still out, I guess. They still don't know.
No one knows.
Citation needed. Okay, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so ZiMag. Yeah, fun stream overall. But ZiMag wasn't it necessarily.
No?
Because we're starting off with Mysterious Thief, which I don't know if that's the one we started on.
No, because of the ordering. Yeah.
But it's all good. It doesn't really matter. The point is, Mysterious Thief was not a great experience. He had a huge horizontal leap.
Which could be kind of cool.
But wasn't in the game that they put it in. You couldn't really, just felt like you couldn't avoid anything. It just felt like they were constantly trying to screw you over. But I did think the graphics were kind of fun. I don't know. I just don't want to give everything a D.
Gonna be a lot of C's and D's.
Yeah, at least in this section. So it's like, I gotta start on a more positive note. I thought the graphics were kind of fun. The dogs were, and the thief.
You could tell they were dogs.
You could tell they were dogs. The thief had a kind of a cool aesthetic as like this red guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. He had kind of a super heat villain.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me like Deadpool or something, you know. I think
Daredevil looking guy, and he. So I liked that part, but I just couldn't really get behind the actual gameplay.
Right.
And that's because the guard would just teleport. Randomly, seemingly.
The guard, always where you were, that's where the guard was.
It was just, it felt like it was almost intentionally impossible.
Yeah, there was just too many things on there. And the thing is once you get we realized we looked in the manual, and the goal was to just get as many points as you can in the time limit.
And that's just not even that interesting.
As opposed to exiting, it's like, if they'd have done like, you get a getaway car or something, you get all this stuff.
Steal everything and then leave.
Yeah.
Or steal something.
It seemed like you were trying to get to the top of the
But the
roof.
Ceiling doesn't even have anything in it.
Yeah.
Just kind of a lackluster experience.
Yeah.
Not a very Mysterious Thief.
No. I gotta go with the C for me, so.
Cosmic Corridors, I might do a little bit. I might be a little more generous, because again, a lot of these aren't going to get very high for me. But Cosmic Corridors, I'm going to give a high C or a low B.
Right.
I was going to give it a B, but now I'm thinking, I didn't really have any fun with it. You can't move anywhere, really. Right. And they didn't put you in the center of the screen, which is just an inherent design flaw for what they were trying to do.
There are a lot of games where you can't scroll really, but it would move it around on this. The background moves around.
It would make you feel like you were moving.
The problem with that, though, is with this kind of game that didn't work because we had the side walls that didn't. You don't really move there. It was just the up and down that. It was really odd.
It just didn't really click.
I'm gonna go lower than the Mysterious Thief. At least with Mysterious Thief, I felt like there was it was a little bit more fun, I guess.
So long as you had some fun with it, that's the nice thing. But I couldn't find myself having much fun with either of them. But Cosmic Corridors, it felt more complete as an experience, I guess. But, it felt like levels were changing if you got enough points.
Sure.
Yeah, but still not great.
Yes.
Not great.
Keep in mind, some of these definitely, or most of these are actually prototypes. So
sure, I understand that. But I do know that I believe we found out that Dishaster, the next one, Want My Mommy, Tanks But No Tanks,
and Cosmic Corridor
were all released.
Yep.
I can't say I loved any of those either, though.
Spoiler alert.
Dishaster being the next one. I keep wanting to get... in relation to the rest of these, I'm going to give Dishaster a B.
It's Dishaster.
Dishaster.
Yeah.
That sounds bad.
It's a Dishaster. I personally love the pun on Dishaster.
It's not a bad pun. It's just hard to say.
It is hard to say. But
I'll give it a B because it actually did have something interesting going on. It was different. It wasn't super duper challenging or fun, but I feel like there were probably modes.
Yeah.
Because by the end, not all of the sticks had plates on them, so it felt like there was probably more to it. And I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that it's probably a B- of a game.
Right. I agree with you there.
And the graphics were definitely the best of these so far.
For the most part. Mysterious Thief, I actually kind of like the graphics.
I did compliment them, but I just mean of one of the completed sort of games here, like Dishaster. Dishaster. It did look pretty good. The character looked all right. The plates were clearly plates. Right. I don't know. It worked out well enough.
Right.
I Want My Mommy is the next one, however, and I'm gonna give this one a D. I didn't really like this game at all. It was, well, maybe I should give it a low C. Is everything just gonna be in C?
Yeah, maybe.
I'll put it the lowest C possible. And I might change my mind later, but it just had really slow, bad movement.
Right.
It had interactions that didn't make a lot of sense. You know, you're trying to get up to the top, but why do you need to get all of these things posted up?
Yeah, it seemed weird. It was like, you're trying to get to the top, but why do you have to get all the
just
things
get
there?
up there?
Yeah.
And also, why is the first level an apple instead of your mom?
I don't know.
Why is an apple going to help you in some way?
All great questions, Wyatt.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just none of these things really gelled to make a cohesive experience. And then on top of that, if you die in the second level, which has different rules that you don't know,
right?
Like the fact that you can hang out on the little poles that you're climbing in the first level, and the enemies won't kill you. Second half of the level, they will.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, okay, so now now it's just exponentially harder.
Yeah, go back to the first level again. That was dumb.
It just sends you all the way back when you lose a life. And on top of that, again, while it was kind of interesting that it did different pitches as you went up and down the poles, the fact that instead of only as you move, it's just as you're there. So it's just a tone.
Yeah.
Also, as funny as they were, the frantic animations just made everything feel really weird based on how slow you were moving. You're like, but you're only barely moving. So it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. We've seen that in the past before. You have a really slow moving guy.
Yeah, and just
the animation is going crazy. I gotta go. I think it was Frenzy, right? I think
Frenzy did that very much so.
It was just like the legs are just going crazy. Yeah.
It's also your only interactions with the world. Berserk. But Frenzy especially, I think.
Yeah.
But your only interaction with the world is setting up the poles and climbing them. You can't jump, you can't interact or get rid of the monsters in any way, seemingly. There might have been that floating power-up that could do something, but it didn't last very long and it was unclear what it did.
Right. It seemed like we couldn't figure out if it was actually helping us or hurting us. That was the thing.
Yeah, so all in all, just a real of an experience. Just not something that I would subject anyone to, even. And again, the graphics also were kind of bad.
Yeah.
Like, not to say that everything has to be perfect or great, or everything on the 2600 is, but this one just looked worse than most of the 2600 games we've played.
Right.
And we've played them from the beginning.
Yep.
And so, that's just my 2 cents on it.
You're good.
You agree, I guess?
Yeah. Yep, I agree pretty much exactly with what you were saying. I didn't... Yeah, it was not fun. It was just kind of like the frantic movement was just, it was just not a great game. And that was one that was actually released. There were several in here that were just, they weren't released, but that was one of the ones that actually did get released. Immies and Aggies.
Okay, thank you. We can cut that part. I was just trying to think of it, and I couldn't. I was trying to read it, and I was like, I don't know what it... Okay, so Immies and Aggies, which is like marbles.
Yes.
Aggies were Agates and
imitation Aggies, apparently.
Agates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Immies Aggies.
Yes.
Which, for one thing, is very interesting because marble is a thing, and I always thought marbles got their name for being made out of marble.
Right.
That is a fun fact, I guess I've learned, is that they were made out of agates and imitation agates.
Apparently.
I don't know if that's a primary thing.
I always thought of them as being made out of glass.
Yeah, and now marbles are all glass.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's really interesting. That is kind of an interesting history on a separate note from this video game, which is bad.
We'll have to do a whole thing on marbles. Whole
Look,
expose.
to be honest, that's one of my favorite things about video games is that you just learn things, or they bring up a context to which fun facts are just abundant for both the real world and video games. But you'll notice that I haven't said anything about this video game despite ranking it and talking for about 35-40 seconds here. This game is a nothing of an experience.
Right. I think it's a prototype, so you have to give it that. It was definitely not baked.
It's definitely not getting better because of that, though. It's definitely still a D experience for what we played.
Yeah,
It's just, all it was waiting, and then you lose at some point because some sort of blue thing comes around.
Yeah, I think that was supposed to be a marble. If they would have made it sort of like an actual marble game.
Yeah, like shooting and knocking things around and whatever.
Something.
But you're supposed to shoot colors. And sometimes there would be 4 screens where there wasn't that color. And you're just sitting there.
You're just waiting.
You're just sitting there. You're just sitting there. You've got your controller in your hand. And you're just waiting. And you're like, oh, next one.
No.
Next one.
Yep.
Next one? And then the color changes.
Yeah. Oh, now we're going to do this.
And it's like, great. Okay. Super. And sometimes you would have to have shot through one to get to a color. Like you could shoot diagonally, but there wasn't always a clear path to do that for some of them. So it's just like, I'm glad they didn't release it because it wouldn't have done well.
And also the fact that the shades of colors that they used were really close to each other.
Oh, they were not the ones you want to pick.
No.
Pick fewer colors and just make them distinct.
Because there were some that they were so close.
Those blues were the same shade of blue. Some
they
people
weren't, but
I know they weren't, but you know, I feel like people watching our stream or even watching this right now, just in the resolution that you have, I can only imagine on a CRT, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been worse.
Yeah, probably.
So it's like, I'm glad it didn't come out and confuse children all over.
They would be traumatized from Immies and Aggies.
Mom, why would you get me this? I thought you loved me.
It goes right there with basic math.
A little bit, yeah.
Can you imagine, like, it was like, these are the worst games. You, like, hand them to your kids, like, like the 5 worst games. Like, here you go. Here, have fun.
Hey, we're going to test to see if you really like video games, kid. I'm only going to give you the worst games.
Yes.
Then when you're an adult, you can play the fun ones.
Yes.
That's a good way to make a kid never play video games.
There you go. It's like Brewster's Millions. That's the plot behind Brewster's Millions.
Brewster's Millions? What is that?
It's an 80s movie where it starred Richard Pryor.
Oh, I think I've heard of this.
He was going to inherit $300 million, but he had to spend $30 million in 30 days and not have a thing to show for it. And so basically the idea was for him to, the guy that was giving him the money, like some rich uncle or something, basically wanted him to hate money. So that was the idea behind it. It was like, anyway.
Interesting.
Cool movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's a cool movie. Anyway.
I think I saw a clip of it once. Okay. I haven't actually seen it, so we'll have to watch that sometime. I bet it'll be better than our next entry, Pizza Chef, which was a disaster.
Was it a Dishaster?
It was much worse than a Dishaster.
Okay.
It was a
steaming pile?
A steaming pizza. It's a personal pan pizza prison of doom.
Okay.
Pain. Pain? Okay, hold on. Personal pan pizza prison of pain.
There you go. There we go.
Personal pan pain prison. personal, I didn't like it. I can't even bring myself to talk about it because I didn't like it. So obviously, again, this one didn't come out, right? Or maybe it came out in Brazil? One of them came out in Brazil or something. Some of these came out other places, but none of these came out in the US. Pizza Chef is the most unfinished game I've ever played. Obviously, there's lots of unfinished games out there. There's lots of worse experiences, I'm sure. This is one of the most incoherent experiences I've ever had in my entire life. Okay. It's like, oh, you're a mustache man with legs. You don't have a body, you have a mustache.
Yes.
And you're walking around, and even though you could be a floating Pizza Chef head, and that would make more sense, instead they give him tiny little legs, which makes it seem like he's some sort of, like, strange head monster just skittering around. And then you go, there's a bunch of rats in your restaurant, not a great thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, grab this, and then go into the kitchen. Oops, there's water everywhere in the kitchen. This is not
This is a health code violation waiting to happen, yes.
This place is getting shut down, and it should. And he's not a pizza chef, he's a pizza monster.
Yeah, that's what we could call this, is a health code violation. There you go, that's
he's a pitiful pizza peddler.
Yes.
And I would never partake.
There you go.
Of his piss poor pizza. Oh, just a like I feel like you could not have salvaged that game very much based on what was there. Also, there's just a room where you fall down the stairs. And that's all you do in that room is fall down the stairs.
It's the stair falling game.
Yeah, you just... It also gives you a 20-minute time limit.
Yeah.
Not like a minute, not like 5 minutes of like, oh, okay, gotta go. It's like, oh, 20 minutes? Yeah. I guess I'll just walk.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. You're giving the bad game way too much time.
What?
You're giving the bad game way too much time talking about it.
It's just, it is one of the more interesting things, though, because, like, Immies and Outies or whatever.
Immies and Aggies.
It was not like a game. It
was.
Sure, but it was dull.
Sure.
Not necessarily bad, just dull.
Right.
This was bad. This was a wild experience. But yeah, all right. I'll move on to Spinning Fireball,
which is so much better.
It was so much better. You're fighting a trash can, and the trash can almost always wins. You're like going like this, and then you throw it, and then after you're done, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
His hands just go up. He's just like,
he's almost like
my incredible mind.
Yes.
My pyrokinetic incredible mind is too powerful for you. I can't even, I've got to contain it.
He's going to fling the fireballs all over the place.
And then he throws it 2 feet to the left instead of up. The one direction I'm supposed to throw it.
Yep.
Needless to say, not very good.
No? You didn't enjoy Spinning Fireball?
I really did not enjoy Spinning Fireball.
I thought it was going to be cooler than it actually turned out to be.
You don't say.
Because, well, it was like, because you get the movement going, and it was kind of cool. But then
it was like impossible to actually aim it.
And it could have been that we needed to do something different with the controls, like up and down, or do something.
Yeah, maybe.
But it was just, I'm
not going to give them that benefit of the doubt, though.
But there really wasn't much to it. I mean, it's still...
You're a weird, bald man who can't contain his genius and his fireball power.
Apparently.
And neither can the trash can that has the same power.
Right.
The dumpster. Or maybe there's just a man in the dumpster and you're two homeless fireball wielders who are fighting over a dumpster. Which is just, I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
Two out-of-work wizards just trying to find a place to rest for the night. And I hope they both get help, because they deserve it, and people deserve help. But that game is bad. Anyway, Tanks But No Tanks. Also pretty bad, honestly. I'm going to give that one a D too.
Obviously? Well, I wouldn't say obviously.
I would say obviously, because I'm pretty sure I gave the panda game that is this game the same rank.
Okay.
Because this is the exact same game in which an army of way too blinky tanks start to slowly move towards you, and you have to destroy 20 of them. Just a large, way too big number for the first level.
Sure.
And they'll shoot at you and whatever, and one of them will occasionally, by sheer accident, wander into your base and blow it up, and you'll lose. Which, again, you'll lose the whole game, as opposed to when you just die.
That's basically like the Space Invaders ending where they land and you're done.
Yeah, right. It's just like...
Well, I'm not gonna go as low as that. I'm gonna say I liked it better than I Want My Mommy.
I guess part of it is, for me, that flashing really did it in for me.
Oh, really?
And also the fact that it was so similar to another game we played that I also didn't like.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that was basically a repackage of this one. Yeah, it was a
Oh, I know, but to be honest, I think the tanks looked better in the ripoff.
Oh, really? Yeah, really? That's funny.
I don't quite remember, but look it up. You go back to this.
Yeah.
Somewhere. That one to see our Panda and Froggo review. I almost said Frogger.
Frogger review?
We have reviewed Frogger, but not as a company.
Yeah. Okay, so ZiMag. Thoughts?
As a publisher, they didn't really... They had a lot of prototypes, so they didn't really ever get their footing to actually get deep into the development of a lot of games.
Right.
I think if they had had time to finish some of these, or like retool them and realize, oh, this isn't working, let's try this with the concept.
Sure.
If they had come out like 4 or 5 years earlier, I think the graphics wouldn't have been as big of a deal, because it would have been in a time where those graphics were like, oh, that's not bad, that's pretty good. But based on the time they came out and the fact that they didn't really get to finish a lot, it's kind of a D-tier developer.
Unfortunately, yeah, I can't disagree. It's like, just a bunch of stuff that they put out.
They tried. It's just nothing. They never found their stride, and because this was during the crash, I'm sure that was a big part of it. They never really had the chance to do further than that.
Right.
To be honest, their B is an honorary B at best.
Yeah, I would agree.
In a lot of ways. So it's like, well... Sorry, ZiMag or Vidco.
Yeah.
I don't know which of you actually existed or why you had the names you did, but...
Okay. Let's move on to Avalon Hill.
Avalon Hill, board game developer, war game developer, and apparently 2600 developer.
Yep.
Much more interesting history than a lot of these 2600 developers, just because of their very storied and classic history in other spaces of entertainment.
Right.
Like, they're a big name in other places, but I don't hear people talk about this these 2600 games a lot in that conversation. But I won't lie. I starting with Death Trap, I'm not unimpressed overall. It's not the most interesting game, but there's something cool to it. Like, it's a very slow-moving bullet, right? But... and you're trying to, like, shoot these 2 turrets or whatever that are shooting this incredibly fast heat seeker.
Like, heat seeker, yeah.
But it's a fun thing to dodge.
Right.
Because moving around, zipping all over the screen is...
The fact that it wrapped and
a fun activity.
Cool. Right.
And, you know, you're trying to do that, avoid that while shooting up at them. So it's like, okay, there are platforms that are slowly starting to block, so I'm trying to time my bursts while also avoiding this. Oh, there's a lot of moving parts that even though the bullet is slow, it never feels like a slow game. So I'm going to give this one, I think, a high B. Like, a genuine B. It's a solid experience that I think I liked overall.
I played it, I think off stream a little bit before you did. And yeah, the heat seekers were kind of crazy. The fact that they were coming. My problem is yes, obviously compared to the ZiMags, this was a masterpiece.
Right,
But truly for me, I'm gonna probably go a high C. I just don't see myself wanting to play it again.
Sure. But I will ask you this. Was it better or worse than Dishaster?
That's a good question, because I look at Dishaster as being something like, I'd be kind of interested to see the other modes. to see what
further
else is
exploration.
Yeah, I could see coming back to that. Death Trap, not so much. I felt like it didn't really do much for me. So,
London Blitz.
That was the maze game.
Yeah, which had a kind of an
bombs.
interesting theme. You're disarming bombs in the Blitz.
Yeah.
Which is sort of wacky as a concept. It's kind of a dark theme for a 2600 game that also super doesn't come across because
we have
it's
a few that have a dark theme.
Yeah. And later on, that's true.
Yeah.
But this one especially is real event, very dark moment in history, and it's you've got to disarm these puzzle bombs.
Yes.
It's that. Okay. Sure. But I will say, we played it for a while, and once we knew what we were doing, the puzzle of it was actually kind of interesting. Running around the maze was fun. It just... I'm going to give this one an A, because even though it's not one that I want to come back to a lot of times, I wouldn't really be opposed to trying to delve a little more into it.
Right. I agree. I felt like it took us a bit to get into, but...
once you do, it's...
Yeah. I think the biggest problem is keeping track of the map in your head and having to switch between. At least they had a little indicator showing which direction you're heading.
That is true.
But I almost feel like this could work as a game where, not that it would work on the 2600, but almost like, you're probably familiar with these asymmetric games that are you're playing as a co-op.
Yeah.
One person, you're not able to see each other's screen, kind of like We Were Here and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where one person has to direct the other person. I was actually in an escape room once where they had a similar thing where we had two people on buttons, one handle up and down, the other one handle left and right.
I've been in an escape room with that that too. Yeah.
You might have been in the same one. Anyway, the deal is that then you had to, they had to tell you which direction to go. And you're like, okay, up, okay, left. All right. And it was just kind of neat. It wouldn't work for this, obviously, because you can only do one screen. But the idea of keeping an eye on the map, you had to keep switching back and forth. That was a little irritating, but the bomb disarming, that was kind of neat. It kind of reminded me a little bit when we were going through it. It kind of reminded me a little of a Mastermind kind of thing, but it was more just you had to just keep tweaking and keep tweaking.
Yeah. And I think a modern day game with this as a premise, even if it's not actually the Blitz, but just there's bombs around and you have to run around the streets and quickly disarm them, could be really interesting to this day.
Sure.
I would enjoy playing a game that has this, but more to it. So I think this has some great bones and even a pretty good amount of meat on it, but not quite enough to reach the pinnacles, but pretty good. And I don't think that's just in comparison to ZiMag.
No.
I think on its own it stands pretty good. Oh, you know what? I think I might repeat myself here, but I might actually give an A to Out of Control too.
Out of Control.
I don't know. That one, once you know what you're doing, it's like a small series of puzzles.
Yep.
They're not really puzzles, but small, acrobatic challenges. And the fact that if you failed, you went back one is really nice. Instead of going starting over. That was
interesting because typically you start over or you lose a life or whatever.
And it was all about speed because of that. You're just trying to do this quickly. It's not just that you're trying to get to the end or anything. You're trying to get to the end quickly.
Right.
No score thing, just time. And I think it worked really well with that. And once you know all what you're doing, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to probably do a little lower, but just because there wasn't a whole lot
from what I saw
more going on.
In the manual, there were also different obstacle courses.
Okay.
So there were...
Yeah, that's a good example. It's an obstacle course.
Yeah.
That would be a good
they had other courses that you could do through the different game modes. So, which is, solid. It's a solid experience, and I think that's another one that just... They had a concept and they executed well on it. I guess that's the big thing for a lot of these. Shuttle Orbiter. This one's hard because I kind of want to rank it a B. I also kind of want to rank it an A because I actually had fun doing it. But I think I'm just going to go... Yeah, I'm going to go B.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll stick with it. Yeah,
Is that your final answer? Okay.
No, I'm absolutely going A.
It was not your final answer.
No, I thought about it, and it's just... I think part of the reason I rank it so high is that there's a lot going on to it, and once you get into it, it's just kind of awesome. It's really cool.
Don't disagree. I could see definitely coming back to that one because... Copycat. I really enjoyed it because just the whole thing of you have to grab this thing from this area, and we just kind of touched on it, but yeah, you have your space shuttle, you dock with the thing, your astronaut comes out, and they did a really cool job with it. When we were first starting out, I was thinking it was going to be like Space Shuttle, the Activision game, and it was like, oh, is this a simulator? No,
it's way less complicated than it is.
It's a little bit more arcadey, I guess. It's a lot more like okay.
It's more gamified.
Yes, yeah. But the whole the astronaut, you got a part. You come back to the space shuttle, and you got to take it over to the thing. And
you want to take it up there.
Yeah.
You're gonna build it.
Yeah.
We didn't get to the building part.
No.
But that's because we had more games to go.
Yeah.
But I want to beat that game.
Yeah.
You know what? It almost feels like this feels like there's a line between this and like Kerbal. Or Kerbal, not Skirble. Kerbal Space Program.
Sure.
Like, you're going out and you're just building this and you're trying to make it work and you're kind of trial and erroring it.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to match the orbits and stuff. Yeah. So it still has like that challenge of, I've got to go slow so it catches up to me, or go fast so I catch up to it, but then match before, things get too far out of sync.
Yeah.
Just really cool.
Yep.
And the last one, Pakashi Squares or Wall Ball.
We don't even know what Parisi Squares actually is.
Parisi Squares, yeah.
So here's something that's interesting. It's something, if you look on the box art for Wall Ball, do you see that in the upper right hand corner?
Yeah, what does that say?
Sports Illustrated. Yeah, there was some sort of
thing with Sports Illustrated.
With Sports Illustrated, I don't know.
I've never actually read a single issue of Sports Illustrated.
Really?
Yeah,
I haven't either. So,
I've never been that interested in sports to want to read a magazine.
Right.
And it's like, what do they? I don't know what they would talk about in a periodical about sports. I guess
just sports.
Yeah. Hey, sports are still happening.
Yes.
It's just things don't change enough for me to be that interested in it, I guess.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there.
Wall Ball.
Wall Ball is the only game that's going to go below a B for me in these. It just wasn't that cool.
It was the idea of it was cool.
Neat conceit, but
I feel like
decent graphics.
So much time just hitting it in the same spot over and over again. It would be really hard to...
I would rather it be a point thing. Like every time you do a successful return, you get a point or something.
It had like 99 balls or whatever. It's like, oh my God, you sit there and play forever.
It's also just keep going forever. And so it was like, okay. I couldn't, it had decent enough graphics, but it just wasn't a really interesting or engaging experience, other than to talk about Star Trek for a minute.
Right.
Because it has the Star Trek vibe.
Yeah,
Because of the looks. The multicolored bars just sort of look like the computer screens.
There we go.
In the various old series and stuff. That's the main reason I made that comparison.
Right.
And, they play Parcheesi on the computer or whatever, and that might be what that's like.
Maybe. We don't.
You could break your
idea.
arm doing this.
Maybe. The idea of it being kind of like Breakout, but in 3D. I felt like we kept hitting the same spot on the screen. And it was like, this is dumb, and I don't know how they would, trying to direct it to where you could actually break
if the wall had been a little bit closer, or even still that far away, and you hit that spot and there's another color underneath, maybe.
I don't know.
So that you could actually have it be like Breakout. So that there's a reason to hit the same spot more than once.
Right.
It at least gives you more of an opportunity, but it didn't hit for me. But it wasn't terrible. It did what it set out to do, and it was what it said on the box. It just, what it says on the box isn't something that was apparently all that good.
Right. Okay, so Avalon Hill.
Absolutely an A developer, I think. Some of their, there's just not a little bit of tweaking on just a couple of these games, and they would have been an S.
I mean, some of these, they could have made them a little bit better, but I don't know.
But in very subtle or simple ways that didn't they really executed well on all their ideas. Mm-hmm. Nothing felt like it was a waste of the concept.
Right.
I don't know how you could do Wall Ball that much better.
That's true.
Death Trap maybe could have had a couple more enemies or a little more variety, but otherwise they're just doing what they did pretty well.
Yep.
Death Trap even had an intro cinematic.
Yep, which was neat. Okay.
Like Superman.
Exactly. All right. So last developer is Wizard.
Only made 2 games.
Yes, and they're both what I would assume is licensed games. Because based off of Halloween and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I guess even though their game company is called Wizard, they really liked slasher movies. Yeah. Which
should have been called Slasher.
Something.
Would have been what they're about more.
Right.
But 2 games, both interesting in different ways. One of them you're running away from the killer, and one of them you are the killer.
Yes.
But starting with Halloween, I'm going to give Halloween a B, I think.
Okay.
Because, I liked it a lot better than Dishaster, and honestly, I liked it better than Death Trap, because there's something going on there.
Yes.
You could get a guy. There were clearly tools. You were trying to explore this house.
Wasn't sure what you're trying to do totally.
It seems difficult to maybe parse that and, reading the manual, whatever. There's something there, though, that feels like you could win.
Right.
And that's something that I think is interesting. It felt like I was heading towards a goal. I just didn't know what the goal was yet. Yeah. And that, that's kind of hit or miss, but it's interesting.
There's a few things that I really liked about this game. One is that they got the music right.
Yeah, they did.
Which was whoa, cool.
That is really cool.
And the death animation was
the headless.
I'm like, wow! Actually showing the red blood spurting and stuff. I'm like,
it was pretty funny.
In a 2600 game, I was just like, damn,
it was a good animation too.
That's crazy. But I could see definitely coming back to this to see what we needed to do to actually beat.
How do you beat Mike Myers?
Yeah, and I liked it. It was kind of interesting. Okay, they had the top part of the screen, the bottom part of the screen. It seemed like in some areas, I guess if the doors lined up, then you could go to the bottom.
That seemed to be. And otherwise, you were just going to a different room on the same floor.
Okay. A map would have probably been helpful.
Yeah, and I bet it seems like there were boundaries. Right. So it seems like you could have mapped it out.
Right, maybe that was the deal.
But, just in the short time we played, though, it was fun. And I gotta say, that goes a long way.
Oh, yeah.
Less fun was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's funny, because I was saying in the stream, oh man, I think I preferred the games where you are the slasher, because there's a lot more action in that. And even though it's kind of, it's spooky, except this was lame.
Yeah.
It was, you hear an occasional pew, 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 which is apparently how people scream.
Yeah, I guess.
And you're running at them, and you turn on your flesh chainsaw that is part of your body, and you kill one person, and then it's yeah, good job. Yep. Then you run out of fuel and you die.
Yeah.
And then
they get kicked.
Yeah, and then you just
that was funny.
Lose, which is interesting.
You just lose.
Yeah. Which is I guess an interesting statement.
Yeah. You get kicked by the girl.
But it was just kind of lame. You didn't do a lot. Yeah. Also, you got stuck on everything.
Yes.
And it was kind of
fences
annoying.
and tumbleweeds.
And this is just a thing with, this is something that's annoying with a lot of old 2600 games, but I think this one does it the worst. A lot of things only move when you move, and it's like, but they don't move relative to each other in a way that makes sense, so it's really hard to avoid. Yeah. Like, oh, there's a bush coming up, all of a sudden there's a wheelchair right in front of you, even though it doesn't make sense in the space.
Right.
Because it rushes up to you and you stop, and you go down and around it.
Right.
And it's like, well, how did that... It's not like it was pushed.
It doesn't make sense.
It does not track, and it makes the whole experience feel a lot worse.
Right. Yeah.
Also, again, you get stuck on it and everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a bit lower, I think. It was, I think, pretty poorly thought out. I mean, it just, I think that they could have, if they would have done the same thing that they did with Halloween and make the bad guy the one you're running from versus you the bad guy. I don't know. I kind of feel like that was not...
There were, at least in this form, being the bad guy was not fun.
No.
There was not much you were doing.
Right.
Like, being the bad guy in a lot of modern games can be fun because you have power and... You know, you're fighting, and it's like, oh, these guys beat you through their plucky will. Right. Like in the Dead by Daylights and the Friday the 13th game that came out now. Where it's like, oh, you're running away from this big guy, or you are the big guy, and both are fun. Sure. Whereas in this one, it's just like, well, why would I be the big guy? Because he's just slow and runs into everything and... has no fuel.
You know, if they'd have had like maybe fuel tanks that you could have picked up,
something to keep the game going. Yeah. The fuel feels kind of like a time limit, and so
it pretty much was because you were like it kept going down when you weren't using it.
Yeah,
that didn't make sense.
No,
like,
and so
they had fuel tanks that you could go collect.
It would give you an opportunity to continue playing the game.
Yeah.
Which it didn't seem like it wanted you to do. And that's part of the problem with it, is just it didn't feel really like it wanted you to play the game. Because especially...
Maybe that was the point.
And maybe, but don't make it then.
Yeah, exactly.
Make your statement elsewhere.
Right.
At least at this time, when games were like... You want to make a Flash game nowadays? Yeah. I guess Flash doesn't exist anymore, but that kind of a thing. And put it on the internet, do it. Kind of funny. Interesting art piece. This, wow, what a waste of money that is.
Yeah, pretty much.
But that's just me. Yeah. Wizard overall, C.
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much...
split between a B and a C, and honestly the... C+. C+, maybe, but it's not great. Yeah. But also, they only ever released 2 games, so we didn't really get to see what else they could have done when they make their Friday the 13th. And their Elm Street. And their Child's Play game.
Yeah, there you go. That would be fun, actually.
That seems like one you could put on the 2600.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, well, I think that's all we have for today.
I think so.
Yeah.
Interesting, very weird smattering of developers. We are getting to the end, and I know that. We've only got... a little bit left, and by the new year, we're going to be
pretty much done.
Getting pretty close to done.
Yeah, I think we only have like 4 episodes left. So,
but this has been an interesting journey, and this is another interesting stop sign on that journey. I'm appreciating doing it, and if you guys are having fun with us, as always, leave your list, but also just tell us what your favorite episode has been so far. Because to be honest, as we go on, it's not like I've forgotten a lot of the games we've played. But without people bringing it up, it's like, oh, what have we done in comparison to this?
We've done everything. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, we got to do a master list at one point. Maybe just a stream that is just us ranking every game we played for the 2600.
How about no?
I don't know. Would you like to see that? Let us know. Our last stream,
just have the whole thing is like
our last stream of this entire series is just all of them.
No, don't.
If you want it,
don't do that.
Get in the comments.
Right,
let us know.
All right, guys. See you guys in the next adventure. Take care. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of this kind of content, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell.
I post new videos all the time and I wouldn't want you to miss any. If you'd like to see more of this series, be sure to click up here. And if you'd like to see something else, be sure to click up here.